Dose reality.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? This is Mr. Anderson.
Yo, what's up, dude?
Mr. Anderson. Yes.
What up? What
Hello.
up? I haven't called in quite a while, so I figured I'd call in for a minute. I
Yeah,
have a
cool.
couple
What's
If
questions.
you want to bring up any of the stuff you said in the chat, or whatever, go ahead, brother man. We'll address it.
Okay, yeah. Well, that too. That question I asked earlier, Brian's answer was flawless, and so it was already. He already.
Are you
addressed it
are you
correctly.
talking about if the people's memories were swapped? That one?
Like if they could
Yeah.
supernaturally change memory or whatever, and you
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
a very
Yeah.
honest response. And
Yeah,
the
yeah,
reason I asked that.
and it's honest.
ahead.
Like, it doesn't mean I'm right. Like I don't really know how this
Right.
works. I have to always say that. Like I could be so wrong, but from the way I've seen how the Mandela effect works, like I would think like if that was the case, what you said, and it's a great idea. We need to think about all avenues of this. It's a great idea, but for me, it's like, well, why would there be all this physical residue? But yeah, what were you gonna say, Mr. Anderson?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, the reason I asked that is because a lot of times with Mandela effect folks and stuff, it comes across that you can't challenge anything or challenge any. Well, they get a rap of being cult-like, where you can't challenge any of their beliefs, so to speak. And
Yeah.
I directly asked you a question, and you gave an honest response, so that kind of
Yeah.
dispels that.
Cool. Awesome.
But I wanted to ask you because when you talk about the updates, I'm curious if you ever went over, since you're the Mandela guy, did you ever go over Elizabeth Loftus experiments and work?
No. Why don't you tell us about it? I'm not familiar with it.
I can't go off memory because, about a couple years ago, I did a video on Mandela effect, so I had to do some background. I don't just randomly do a video; I do some background on it.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the different aspects and like the different tribes that have word of mouth things that work more effectively than written and all this different stuff. But in the 70s, Elizabeth Loftus, she was doing actual scientific experiments where they would basically show somebody some new information.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw that new information, it would actively change their memory.
Yeah.
So it would literally update experiment.
That's
So
literally
that's
like
curious.
exactly. That's very much like what we see. Yeah.
But that was in the 70s that they were doing that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Loftus and them. So that's
Yeah,
why I was curious, because that's something substantial that somebody was doing directly about this update thing. But they're not implying it's supernatural or something, of course. They're just
No, but that could have been that could have been them prepping to prepare what was about to happen with people, right? Like, so they did this experiment like you're talking about, and then they would know, oh shit, we better start rolling out these articles in the media that tells people Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse, and because they did roll a lot of that stuff out years before people started noticing the changes. Like, that article came out in 2009. There was an article. There was shows like some morning TV shows that I showed that had a bunch of legit Mandela effects, and they're calling them all movie misquotes. But this was like 2006, 2007. So like what you're saying seems like that could have been how they kind of gauged it, and then started rolling out the disinfo, right?
That's exactly where I was going with it, because
yeah, man.
Like you said, they do real stuff to learn how things work, and then now they know how to propagandize. Now they know. They have the information, they have the data, so now they know how to act. They have strategy. Just like when Sigmund Freud was doing his thing, with the whole repressed memory thing.
Yeah.
They were basically gaslighting kids who were molested and making them think, oh, that's just a false reality. That's a false memory. So they actively have looked at how the human mind works with all this stuff, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And they're definitely.
And I mean, you could argue, somebody could argue, oh, we've all been MK Ultra, or something like that, or whatever. But there's lots of theories, but
And what was her name again? Kim Loftus, Elizabeth Loftus. What was it?
Yeah, Elizabeth Loftus.
Elizabeth Loftus. I'm gonna look into that a little.
And then
that's
there's another
interesting.
dude. I forgot I think it was Nicholas Reed. He did he did some study where he was studying like the tribes and stuff. Like there's a tribe in Africa that they called it like what do they call it? Some kind of framework basically, where it was built into the culture to tell the story, but to the T, like very, very accurately. And they compared it to the British records, and the British written records were not as accurate as the verbal passed down history of that tribe.
Oh, wow.
So they were actually more accurate than the written. So I think there's also something as far as how we use our mind and exercise our skill set in our mind and our muscles in our mind. I think they want us to keep us weak at exercising that muscle to where
Absolutely.
we don't know our left from our right.
Yep.
And then now we got to go trust. When we go read, now when we go to Wikipedia and it says, hey, it's always said this, we're like, oh, that's what it's always been. Now we lost our ability and our skill set, our own ability, and we're just delegating it just like we do everything else.
Yeah,
So
and like you said, with that, you know, the way they prepped people for this, like with those experiments in the 70s, like they know when they put these things out on Wikipedia for 95% of the population, once they read that new reality, that's their new reality in their mind, just like you said, you know, it just like replaces their memory.
Yep. And another one is that so-called detailed study they did on that 80s bombing. Do you have any videos on the 80s terrorist bombing?
No, I actually don't have any videos on it.
That was a big gaslight. Because I reinvented the word Mandela effect. I call it collective gaslighting. That's the term I use for it. But in the 80s, there was a major terrorist bomb at this railway station in Italy. And there's this big old clock there, right? Like, you know, train stations have a big ass clock or whatever. Well, that clock always worked. And when that terrorist event happened, that it stopped that clock. And then after they fixed everything for a couple years or whatever, they got the clock to work again, then it worked again. Well, they started claiming that clock was always broken. So what happened was all the people that worked at that train station and shit started rejecting that and was like, hell, I've worked at this train station 30 years. That clock always worked until that terrorist bombing.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where they actually came out publicly with a detailed study to gaslight these people and how they're all retarded and they're misremembering what happened with that clock.
Oh, wow. I didn't hear about that either.
Yeah. So that's why I call it collective gaslighting, because that's what I see happening. Because we're not gaslighting one person. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up too that I noticed when I was diving into it was Art Bell, because Art Bell, of course, high-level Freemason, gatekeeper. 2001, he had that episode where that person called in talking about Mandela, saying there's no way, I saw him die in the 80s and this and that and this and that. And so right there, he started gatekeeping it into the whole, what was it? He put a spin on it, the spin that they have to this day after the Fiona Broom thing and all that. But I noticed that. I was like, man, that...
You mean the Starfire Tour thing? Because see, Starfire Tour claims she put the lie out there that Nelson Mandela had died in prison. She came up with that, and then people ran with it and started saying they had the same belief or memory that, you know. But she said she polled Starfire Tour, the scientist. She said she polled thousands of people and asked them, what's your memory of Nelson Mandela? None of them ever said they thought he died in prison. Then so she put that lie out there, and then she repolled everybody, and then some people or a bunch, whatever, told her that they remembered him dying in prison. So they attached to that lie she put out there as their own memory. So, you know, that's kind of crazy.
But everything about the Nelson Mandela one, whether it was Starfire Tour or whether Fiona Broom or like that whole story stinks to high heaven of me and
Well,
everything.
see, Starfire Tour blames Art Bell
totally
and Fiona for messing that up for her, that whole experiment or whatever she was doing, you know, and that he released it early and all this crap. I don't know, you know, but anyway, it has to do with Starfire Tour, what you're talking about, Colin.
Yeah. And there was one more thing I'll bring up, and then I'll let another caller
cool.
call in, whatever. Because for me, I have a different perspective, and than most. And to me, I look at my wheelhouse as the occult and how things work as far as that.
Yep.
And if you read Plato's Phaedrus, right, Socrates describes Thoth, or Thoth, however you want to say it, the inventor of writing, written writing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and he's the one that invented this amazing writing and all this stuff. And the king basically breaks it down for him and explains him, look, you're a genius and amazing and all that, but sometimes the people that invent things don't realize every aspect of it when they invent it. And he was saying, this is going to cause people to lose their memory and become forgetful. And they're going to start calling upon things that are written, and they're going to lose their skill set for remembrance. And he basically said, you'll give your disciples not truth, but only a semblance of truth. They will be hearers of many things and will have learned nothing. They will appear to be omniscient and will generally know nothing. They will be tiresome company, having the show of wisdom without the reality. So my question is, are they keeping the writtens fluid intentionally as a lesson for these people in the know?
Yep.
So that us so-called profane people lose our skill set and drown in their writtens?
Good question. Good theory. Good,
Could be. Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a thought. I only did one Mandela video in my life because it's not like my skill set, so I did one video, but I just like to ask questions directly. I don't do like weird hit pieces and all that other weird shit,
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's good to ask the tough questions too, and to put all these ideas out there and what if this and what if that,
Because I have some Mandela effects that, to me, I just couldn't care less what someone thinks. I know for a fact they were how they were.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Well, that's the point. We all have some that are personal to us that we know you can't debunk. So, on everybody that thinks that it's fake. I mean, every single person has a personal Mandela effect or 1,000, that proves right there that it's real. I mean, unless you're going to say we've all been MK Ultra or we've all been, whatever. I mean, individually or at whole. It's bull crap. There's just too many that are unexplainable without, it's just no.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Oh, before I go, I wanted to just really quick, because I did mention the King James Version thing.
Yeah,
I'm not dismissing all the Bible Mandela effects. For me personally, the reason I dismiss any of them with the King James Version, because my whole life, I've known that it's been an ongoing debate that the King James Version has always injected modern terminology and concepts into that version.
Mm-hmm.
So King James Version has a lot of things like planets, for example, that are not in any other thing because it's direct indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
Like Easter, for example. The word Easter, I think, was invented, in the 8th century? And then the King James Version says it 8 centuries later. So chronologically, the word Easter was invented way before that was written.
Yeah.
So that's why, chronologically, I have to reject anything with the King James Version.
What about the ones that are universal, though? That resonates more with you? Some of those ones because a lot of them are universal across all of them. Yeah, two or more.
Two or more thing really resonates. There are some key universal ones that resonate, but that I just wanted to clarify why I said that about King James.
Yeah,
version.
I'm glad you did. Yeah, awesome.
You know what I mean? But you guys
All right,
have a
bro.
good rest of your day. It was awesome talking